This program was brought to you by Koller Institute of Venture at Tel Aviv University.
So I come from the law school. We produce lawyers. And usually lawyers are not associated with a lot of good stuff that goes around. They either come in where there's a breakdown or they tell you what the constraints are. So I'm going to try to talk a little bit about the other side of law and the other side of lawyering. In Israel, you have to go through law school in order to become a lawyer, so we teach our students. And part of the teaching experience is legal clinics, which would be the topics of my talk. So I'm a lawyer. I do research. I teach, and we really stick to the three missions of the university. We have a unique method of teaching. First of all, we don't stand in front of the class. I'll tell you in a little bit how the clinics are structured. But we teach them about social lawyering. We teach them about ethics, because everything we do has to do with people, and whatever we do has an impact on people's life. We teach them practical tools that they can take with them after they finish law school. And our kind of learning is what we call experiential learning, through hands-on work with our clients, with our projects. So we have a very strong focus on learning, but it's value-based learning. As I'll tell you in a minute, we help, we assist both individuals and groups that are not represented through the market for legal services. And I want to emphasize that because there are clinics and other places in the world, in very good universities, that do arbitration between high-tech companies. We don't do that. I mean, we kind of target our work towards those instances that do not find solutions in the market for legal services. And we put it out, right, that we talk about social justice. There is a connection between law and justice, even though our students kind of tend to forget that after a while. So we kind of bring back the questions, the basic questions about social justice, equality, and human rights. And then we have a very strong impact on the outside world, which is going to be the focus of my talk. But a lot of our work comes back into reflective writing, into research. I think half of my publications have come up from the work in our clinics, and so have for many of our colleagues. It's a different kind of knowledge that is produced after you are out there and you try to understand what's going on with this thing called law. So it's kind of bottom-up knowledge that meets the theory that is being developed in the law school. So how does it work? We offer our students during their third year of law school to take a clinic. It's a year-long course. We have a class component, meets once a week. Usually a research faculty teaches the clinic, the class component. In addition, the students work 4 to 6 hours a week under the supervision of what we call clinical instructors, clinical lawyers that we actually employ here at the university. We have 14 full-time lawyers, or 15 full-time lawyers. 150 students a year go through the clinics, and hundreds of clients and projects are actually handled by our clinics a year. So if this has been going on for the last 15 years, we have had thousands of people being impacted by our work. Right now, we offer 8 clinics. I'm just going to say a word about them, and then I'm going to delve a little more deep into 3 of them. We have a human rights clinic. Just as an example, our clinic was responsible for representing people who were disconnected from water because of poverty. We changed the policy. Now we're moving on to electricity. We do have an issue with people who are not able to pay their electricity bills and are disconnected from electricity. We developed the concept of energy as a human right and then try to kind of take it back to the court system. We have a criminal defense system. Our clinic is involved in the defense of high-profile cases in Israel, as well as misdemeanors. We have a Holocaust survivors clinic. We have a workers' rights clinic, which I'm going to talk about a little more. Refugee, we were the first law practice in Israel that dealt with issues of asylum seeker and refugees coming into Israel, and were involved in many of the legal precedents. We have an environmental justice clinic. We push the Clean Air Act. We push the Freedom of Information of Environmental Hazards Act. We push the law on the polluter pays, as well as representing community and environmental hazards. We have a class action clinic, which I'll talk about before, and the housing community and law clinic, which is going to be the focus of the last part of my talk, where I think we're doing the most innovative stuff in affordable housing development, actually, here in Tel Aviv. How do we do it? Well, first of all, we provide legal aid, the traditional good old legal aid for individuals and groups. Our students meet clients, they learn about the legal problem, and under the supervision of lawyers, try to find solutions. We also do organizing. Law and organizing is also something that is part of our social change tools. As I'll tell you in a bit, we do a lot of workers organizing, unionizing, and we also do tenants organizing. We do economic development. We had for many years a clinic that developed help people go into small businesses like micro businesses, micro lending, bringing mainly women from the welfare system to the small business world. We work together with a business school on that. And right now we're involved in the development of urban renewal and affordable housing as part of our housing clinic. And we also work on the policy. We promote legislation. We go to court and we try to change the law from above. We work with the government. So we're kind of involved on all levels: policy, legal aid, organizing, and economic development, all together at our law clinics. I'm going to talk about 3 projects. The first is a new clinic that we actually brought in from IDC Herzliya. They moved, they chose to come to us. I'm going to talk about the project that established a new labor union at the law school. At the basement of the law school a few years ago, we formed a new labor union called Koach LaOvdim. And then I'm going to talk about projects, one of our projects that is now taking place in Jaffa, that we're working with a low-income community to develop affordable housing. Class actions, what are they? Just for those who are not familiar, class action is kind of a legal tool that allows somebody to come to court and to say, I have an issue that is mutual to hundreds or thousands of people, and I'm going to bring the case on behalf of that person. This is a good thing. It provides economic incentives, both to the individual that wants to claim on behalf of the public, and also to the lawyers, because lawyers get a lot of money if they represent someone and the class action is declared, and then the lawyers can get a big chunk of the fee that the company has to pay for correcting whatever it was doing wrong. We have found out that this creates, this distorts the incentives, and therefore very often we find that the named plaintiff and the lawyer get a very good settlement for themselves, but the public does not necessarily get a good settlement under this good tool generally. And therefore what the clinic does is it monitors all the class actions that are being filed, and it identifies those cases where the public interest is not being served in particular cases, and it intervenes. It jumps into the class action and it tells the judge, what you have done here is not good to serve the public interest, that the incentives here have been distorted. And just to give you an example, HOT, the Israelis here know HOT, communications. It's very hard to disconnect from HOT, and there was a class action that was filed against HOT, and the class action itself was accepted, but HOT communications company said that it was going to contribute something to the public and to the community, and we found out that this was something that it was going to do anyway, regardless of the clinic, of the class action. The clinic intervened, and challenged this and won. Israel Railways was sued for some kind of nuisance and noise. Again, the clinic objected to the settlement because it didn't serve the public. It only served the individual plaintiffs and their lawyers. And against Mega Gluflex, though we've been hearing a pharmaceutical company telling us something about Mega Gluflex. Apparently it was not accurate. The settlement did not compensate the individual consumers, and again the clinic intervened. So we see here, I'm telling you a little bit about this. This is a method, an innovative method, because it would have been easier for us to, and we're trying to do that too, to bring class actions and to get a lot of money for that. But as the clinic, we do try to identify and isolate the public interest and see where we could make a difference there. So that's one clinic that is making its impact. The other one is this is a really interesting story. I was the director of all the clinics for the last 14, 15 years. And my policy was to give the clinicians, the lawyers, really the freedom to do whatever they thought social justice demanded, because there are so many problems out there in the world. I don't care if they choose education or employment or housing or health or whatever. And under my nose, actually right across from my office, I started to understand that something pretty radical was going on. I think the president and the rector are gone, so that's good. So, and I was asking the lawyers, what's going on? I mean, you've been having these late night meetings here with all these people that I don't know. And they said, well, we're establishing a new union in Israel. I said, really? Here at the university? They said, yes, our clinic is is identified the problem. There is one big union that is not representing the weaker workers, the cleaners, the guards, the people that the Histadrut, the more institutionalized labor union didn't even look at, and we're going to set up a new labor union, and they did. And in 2007, Koach LaOvdim, which is now a very significant player in the field of unionizing and workers' rights, was actually established at the clinic. I remember a conversation that I once had with a donor. She came from Switzerland, and she wanted me to tell her what the clinics are doing. And I said, well, we have a human rights clinic and we're representing Arabs on land disputes. She says, oh, this is very, very important. And then I told her, okay, I went a little further. I said, we have environmental cases where we're challenging the fact that our beaches are not accessible to the public. She says, oh, this is very important. On our castle in the near Lausanne Lake, the government also made us make public access very important. And then I went further and I said, well, we're actually representing refugees from Sudan and from Eritrea. She said, very, very important. And I said, and when we're also working to unionize workers, she says, that's political. And that's political. And it really is something that you need the freedom of the university, the kind of the professional and the academic freedom to do things where you also stand not only against the government but also against capital. And I think that the fact that in the clinics, the lawyers and the students and the activists thought about the need to set up a new union is something that I think is ideally located maybe at a program at a university. Nowadays, Koach LaOvdim has over 12,000 members, and it represents a very broad array of workers, both weak workers and stronger workers. It also goes to court and tries to get precedents in labor law that support unionizing. Maybe some of you know the Pelephone, we have the Pelephone cellular company did not allow its workers to organize. And it was threatening its workers. The clinic took this to court and got a precedent from the labor court that Pelephone is not allowed to restrict and to talk to its workers about unionizing. So we do this type of work with our students. Student get sensitized, students learn about real life problems of mainly marginal and kind of peripheral populations. The last clinic that I want to talk about is the clinic that I run. As I told you, I'm a lawyer. I used to do litigation, and I used to go to court and I used to argue before judges and sometimes lose, sometimes I used to win. But there's a feeling that, you know, talking about law and talking about rights has its limitations. And over the years, we decided at the clinics to work on probably one of the main issues, or the major issue in Israel's socio-economic field, the housing crisis. And we are facing a housing crisis, and we feel that we have something to contribute. So at the Affordable Housing Center, which I also direct, we do research, we do policy work. At the clinic, we really work as social entrepreneurs, I think in a novel sense that is now being looked at both by government and by the private sector, because I think we filled a gap that was missing and are now transforming our work into something more institutionalized. So what do we do? We go into a neighborhood. We go out there. Right now we have 3 projects going on in Jaffa and 1 going on in Lod. Usually we're interested in low-income neighborhoods. Sometimes we're called in by the city. In our Jaffa project, we were actually contacted by the Tel Aviv municipality, and they told us if we would be willing to go into a certain neighborhood and to look into the possibility of initiating a housing urban renewal or a neighborhood renewal project, which we went into and are now in the midst of. So we actually do the pre-development work. We do the business plan. Okay, we do the planning and zoning inquiry. We say how many building rights are there here? What are the possibilities of reconstruction? Who are the people? What are their needs? What can we build here? We hire an architect, or we use the School of Architecture here. We basically look at this urban renewal project as a combination between a social and economic initiative that would serve the people living in the neighborhood as well as create new housing. Okay? And then we, with these parameters, we continue. What is important in this particular clinic is that we use the resources here at the university. Over the years, we've been working with the business school, with the David Azrieli School of Architecture. We have a professor of architecture and architecture students on staff at the clinic, the Department of Sociology, and Department of Social Work. So we bring in like 5 disciplines to this project. Okay, it's not just law. Lawyers can't do it alone. The architects can't do it alone. And we kind of build a team of an architect, a business person, social workers. We are recognized as a place where social work students can do their work. What you see here in the picture, in the left picture, are our students working with the architecture students on actual plans. What you see in the right picture is 3 of us going to the president of the university asking for money for the project, which we didn't get, but we took a picture afterwards. Anyway, so there is an advantage coming from the university to pull in all the knowledge that is developed here. We have a case study that I want to talk about. This is a neighborhood in, if you know Jaffa, it's on Shderot Yerushalayim, it's on Jerusalem Boulevard. This is basically what it looks like today. It was built in the 50s, 180 existing units that really cannot be renovated. They need to be demolished and new buildings should be built. When I say low and moderate income families, I mean that we with our students have gone into 120 apartments, really understanding who lives there, what are their needs, what is their income, what would they be able to spend later when there's a new apartment, what is going to happen with elderly people, what is going to happen with the Jewish-Arab mix that is there. This is one of the rare areas in Israel where Jews and Arabs actually live together, and live together, you know, not in great harmony, but in relatively good balance. And what's going to happen when this whole neighborhood is going to go into this frenzy of building? Who will live there? We checked out which mechanisms we can use in order to get the most of the benefits for the residents. Here in Israel, we have what we call Tama 38, which allows you to get good tax incentives if you construct new buildings in order to protect them from seismic damage. We found a developer that we liked. We found an architect that we liked. We invited them in. We have a plan now to build 720 new units. Out of them, 100 will be long-term rental. This is something that doesn't exist in Israel, long-term rental. Long-term rental at affordable rates. And the residents receive larger apartments and so on. So how do we get from this to this? Of course, this is just an illustration, but it basically, what is this supposed to look like at the end? And when we look around us, we see that there are many old neighborhoods that are supposed to go through urban renewal, but they're stuck. They're stuck for years. And one of the main reasons that they're stuck is because there's nobody out there to look at what the current residents need and to get their consent. And therefore, the model that we have developed, that a nonprofit, like a civil society organization, like a clinic at the university, goes in and looks into the interests of the residents, asks them what they want, asks them what their concerns are, and kind of works as a broker between the residents and the commercial developer. The chances of getting the residents to agree are multiplied by maybe 3 or 4 times, which means that the development time would be shortened. It wouldn't take now 6 or 7 or 8 years, it would take 2 or 3 or 4 years. And this has great economic value for the developer, okay? And also for the government, because all these new projects are stuck now in the works because the residents are fighting and nobody's organizing them and nobody really looks at their interests. Just to give you a small example, in most of these old developments, about 30 to 40% are people who are renting. What's going to happen with them? Nobody asks. 15% are people over 75. What is going to happen with them? Nobody asks. What about the public housing tenants? So the fact that a nonprofit is going into the field and actually producing a plan and working with a resident is not just doing good. It is actually making these processes more efficient and saving a lot of money to the developer and to the government. And therefore, one of the things that we're going to do when we have been doing is we've been asked by the government to actually bring and demonstrate our model. And a few weeks ago, the Ministry of Housing has adopted this model into something that they would like to implement across the board. And we are now approaching a foundation that has introduced into Israel what we call social impact bonds. These are bonds that raise money, and you can demonstrate that the return on the bonds, which is more modest than the regular commercial bonds, but would actually have an extra added value. So we are developing new financial tools in this project, again, based on the social work and the community work that we are doing, because it can be converted into numbers and into gains that developers and the state would have if they use this model. Okay, so what I'm trying to say here is that there's a lot that can be done with this type of innovative thinking of how to transform our work into real impact. Our students love to meet developers. Many of our students in the clinic come to the clinic because they think they're going to do real estate, and then they found out that they're going to do housing. So it's not the same thing. It's not the same mindset. But they do like to meet the developer, and they get a really good chance to see what it really takes to get involved in real estate development and to have a social impact on the community around you. So, clinical education, 2 minutes, I'm done. Clinical education, I truly believe, I've been doing this for 15 years. You know, I was a lawyer for 10 years before that. Part of my DNA is still doing this type of practical work. And here at the university, it does offer both interdisciplinary input and really good teaching. I think we do a pretty good job in infusing our theoretical insights with real life knowledge. Just to give you an example, many of our clients are poor. And we kind of go in and ask our students, why do you think these people are poor? And well, they have their ideas. Maybe they didn't work hard enough. Maybe they don't know how to calculate their money. We talk about it. We read about theories of poverty. We read about structural theories of poverty, economic theories of poverty, and our students test the theory against what they see when they meet our clients. Okay? We learn urban renewal law, but we also understand its limitations. So we have a real opportunity to fuse theory and real life knowledge, and we promote social change in its broadest sense by taking these ideas and putting them into practice. That's it.
This program was brought to you by Koller Institute of Venture at Tel Aviv University.